There comes a moment in life when someone realizes they have been looking at you all along, yet never truly seeing. They thought they knew you, thought they understood the surface, but depth is not always obvious at first glance. Your strength, your insight, your quiet resilience, they all lingered beneath a calm exterior, waiting to be recognized. Sometimes it takes distance, reflection, or a glimpse of your unwavering character for someone to truly perceive what has been present all along. This moment of realization can be humbling for them and affirming for you, a recognition of the richness, authenticity, and wisdom you carry. Misjudgment is not just about error, it is a reminder of the layers we all hold, the unseen dimensions of character that define us, and the profound impact of being fully understood and appreciated for who we truly are. Underestimating emotional intelligence is one of the most common ways someone can misjudge another person's depth. Emotional intelligence is subtle, often hidden beneath gestures, words, and outward behavior. It is not always obvious in everyday interactions because it operates quietly, influencing decisions, responses, and the ability to navigate the complexities of life. When he first encounters you, he may perceive only what is immediately visible, your appearance, your manners, your words at the surface level, without recognizing the inner landscape that guides your behavior. Emotional intelligence encompasses self-awareness, empathy, regulation of emotions, and the insight to understand others' perspectives. It is this invisible skill, this ability to process, reflect, and respond with depth that often goes unnoticed at first. To underestimate it is to mistake calm composure for simplicity, patience for passivity, and measured responses for lack of thought. The first misjudgment usually stems from assumptions based on superficial cues. People often evaluate others through snapshots of behavior, moments of interaction, or societal stereotypes. He might have assumed that your quiet demeanor, understated presence, or restrained expressions reflected a limited emotional range. He may have seen composure under pressure and interpreted it as detachment, or your ability to remain calm in conflict as a lack of engagement. Emotional intelligence, however, does not always manifest as overt emotion. It shows in the subtle, consistent ways one reads situations, anticipates reactions, and responds with wisdom. It is in the way you sense tension without being told, the way you offer comfort without being asked, and the decisions you make that honor both logic and feeling. These qualities, invisible to a casual observer, reveal depth over time. Emotional intelligence is also intertwined with resilience and self-awareness. To underestimate it is to fail to see the capacity to process experiences, learn from mistakes, and navigate interpersonal dynamics with grace. He may have assumed that because you did not loudly assert yourself or showcase your knowledge, you lacked insight or understanding. Yet emotional intelligence often operates silently. It is strategic, reflective, and observant. You notice what is unsaid, understand underlying motivations, and respond in ways that balance empathy with clarity. These are not traits that announce themselves. They are felt in interactions, experienced subtly, and only truly recognized by those willing to look beneath the surface. Moreover, emotional intelligence involves the ability to manage and regulate one's own emotions. When someone misjudges this quality, they may believe that visible expressions of feeling are the only indicators of depth. They might expect dramatics, assertiveness, or visible passion as proof of emotional engagement. Yet your strength lies in measured, intentional responses, in knowing when to speak, when to listen, and how to navigate tension without succumbing to it. This restraint is not indifference, it is mastery of self and awareness of others. It is a quality that grows clearer with time and interaction, revealing layers that a superficial glance could never capture. Empathy is another facet of emotional intelligence that can be underestimated. The ability to sense and understand the emotions of others, to respond with care and authenticity, is often invisible to those who focus only on themselves or on the most obvious cues. He may have misread your empathy as simple kindness or assumed that your understanding of others was ordinary. In reality, Emotional intelligence allows you to perceive subtleties, anticipate needs, and offer support in ways that profoundly impact relationships. These capabilities often go unnoticed until circumstances reveal them through crisis, challenge, or quiet moments of connection, prompting a realization that the depth he overlooked was always present. Finally, underestimating emotional intelligence often leads to delayed appreciation. At first, he may have judged you by conventional metrics, appearance, charisma, or immediate impression, overlooking the quiet mastery with which you navigate life. It is only through reflection, observation, and experience that he begins to recognize the intelligence, insight, and emotional depth he once misjudged. This recognition is humbling, revealing not only your layers, but also the limitations of assumptions and snap judgments. Emotional intelligence is rarely loud, but its presence shapes interactions, decisions, and relationships in profound ways that, once realized, demand acknowledgement, respect, and admiration. Ultimately, underestimating emotional intelligence is a common form of misjudgment because it requires attentiveness, patience, and the willingness to look beyond the surface. It is a reminder that depth is rarely immediate, that true insight is revealed through interaction, reflection, and observation. When someone finally perceives your emotional intelligence, it transforms their understanding of who you are, illuminating the richness, subtlety, and resilience that define your presence. Appreciation of inner strength often comes gradually, sometimes only after someone realizes they have misjudged another person. Inner strength is subtle, quiet, and deeply woven into the fabric of one's character. It is not measured by loud declarations or visible triumphs. It is revealed in resilience, patience, and the steady ability to navigate life's challenges with grace. At first glance, he may have overlooked or underestimated this strength, focusing instead on superficial traits or the immediate impressions that people present to the world. Yet over time, he begins to notice the courage it takes to maintain integrity in difficult situations, the persistence required to handle adversity without losing composure, and the subtle confidence that comes from knowing oneself and standing by one's values. This realization often brings a profound respect that was absent in the early stages of observation. Inner strength is frequently expressed in quiet resilience. It is present when you continue to move forward despite setbacks, challenges, or disappointments. He may have assumed that calm composure or emotional restraint indicated passivity or lack of engagement, failing to recognize the deliberate fortitude required to respond thoughtfully rather than impulsively. Inner strength is not about avoiding difficulties. It is about confronting them with awareness, dignity, and resolve. He begins to notice how you handle tension, criticism, and life's unexpected trials, recognizing that your reactions are rooted in a well-developed capacity to endure, adapt, and persist. The subtlety of this strength often makes it invisible until observed in moments of true challenge. This appreciation also grows from observing your consistency. Inner strength is reflected not only in dramatic or high pressure situations, but also in the steady maintenance of personal standards, values, and emotional equilibrium over time. He begins to see that you are guided by principles, that your actions are intentional, and that your decisions reflect thoughtfulness and integrity rather than convenience or impulse. The recognition that someone possesses this level of internal fortitude often inspires admiration because it signals reliability, emotional stability, and the ability to navigate complexity without faltering. It is a quality that affects not only your own life, but also those around you, providing subtle guidance, reassurance, and influence. Part of appreciating inner strength is understanding the sacrifices it often entails. Strength is rarely ostentatious. It requires discipline, self-awareness, and sometimes the courage to endure hardship silently. He may begin to notice the ways in which you prioritize values over immediate comfort, handle responsibilities with quiet determination, and offer support without demanding recognition. These are acts that require resilience and character, and they gradually reveal the depth of your fortitude. Misjudgment arises when such qualities are overlooked, taken for granted, or interpreted as ordinary rather than extraordinary. Recognition of this strength often brings a humbling awareness of how much goes unnoticed beneath the surface. The appreciation of inner strength also extends to emotional endurance. A person who possesses true depth can manage their own emotions while maintaining empathy, patience, and understanding toward others. He begins to see the effort it takes to remain balanced and composed, especially in challenging circumstances. Your ability to navigate interpersonal dynamics, manage conflicts, and offer support without losing yourself demonstrates a strength that is both practical and profound. It is a form of mastery over oneself that commands respect, not through intimidation or dominance, but through quiet example. Finally, this recognition often transforms his understanding of the person he misjudged. What he initially perceived as ordinary or superficial now appears extraordinary. He begins to appreciate the layers of courage, patience, resilience, and integrity that define your inner world. This realization fosters admiration, respect, and often a measure of humility as he understands how much depth he had overlooked. It is a recognition that true strength is rarely displayed loudly, but its presence shapes interactions, influences decisions, and sustains relationships in ways that are profoundly meaningful. Ultimately, appreciating inner strength is about recognizing the quiet, enduring qualities that define a person's character. It requires attention, reflection, and an openness to see beyond appearances. When someone finally perceives this strength, it reshapes their understanding, revealing the depth, resilience, and courage that have always been present, quietly guiding life and interactions. It is a profound moment of clarity, respect, and genuine admiration, born from the realization that the surface never told the whole story. Recognition of authenticity is a moment of clarity that often comes only after someone has misjudged another person. Authenticity is a rare quality, quietly powerful, and not always immediately visible. It is reflected in the consistency between one's words, actions, and values, the alignment of behavior with inner principles. At first, he may have overlooked or underestimated this authenticity, distracted by surface impressions, societal expectations, or his own assumptions. He might have judged by appearances, charisma, or temporary moods, failing to see that your depth lies in the unwavering truthfulness with which you navigate life. Authenticity does not announce itself loudly. It is revealed gradually through patterns of behavior, integrity in small and large matters, and the courage to remain true to oneself despite external pressures or opinions. Misjudgment occurs when someone takes the visible for the whole, not recognizing the profound alignment beneath. Authenticity is closely tied to consistency. A person who is authentic behaves in ways that reflect inner values, even when no one is watching. He may have assumed that compliance with expectations or social norms meant conformity or simplicity, not realizing that your choices are guided by deliberate thought, ethical grounding, and self-awareness. The recognition of authenticity often comes when he observes decisions and actions that reflect integrity over convenience, truth over pretense. It is in moments of challenge, moral testing, or everyday choices that authenticity shines most brightly, revealing the depth he had previously underestimated. This alignment between words and deeds commands respect and creates a sense of trust and admiration that cannot be easily replicated. Authenticity also involves vulnerability, another element that can be overlooked. A person who is authentic allows themselves to experience and express emotions genuinely, without hiding behind masks or facades. This openness is not reckless, it is tempered with self-awareness and discretion. He may initially mistake reserved behavior for detachment, or quiet reflection for superficiality, only later understanding that authenticity requires both strength and discernment. The ability to be genuine, to maintain personal truth in a world that often encourages performance or conformity, is a profound indicator of depth. Recognizing this quality can be transformative, prompting a re-evaluation of previous assumptions and a newfound respect for the subtle power of living honestly. The appreciation of authenticity is often intertwined with recognition of moral and ethical grounding. An authentic person navigates life according to principles, not convenience, and makes decisions that honor both self and others. He begins to notice how your choices reflect consideration, fairness, and a deep understanding of consequence. This recognition shifts perception from superficial judgment to profound respect, as he realizes that the qualities he once overlooked are not performative but deeply ingrained. Authenticity, in this sense, is not just about honesty, it is about the courage to act in alignment with one's inner convictions, even when doing so is difficult, unpopular, or unrecognized. Authenticity also shapes relationships in ways that are subtle but significant. It fosters trust, encourages openness, and sets a tone of genuine connection. He begins to perceive that your presence is stabilizing, grounding, and influential, not because of external performance or charm, but because of the consistency, truthfulness, and integrity you bring to interactions. Authenticity inspires reflection, respect, and often humility in others as they recognize the rarity and value of someone who remains true to themselves in every circumstance. Misjudging this quality initially may have led him to underestimate not only your character, but also the quiet impact you have on those around you. Ultimately, recognition of authenticity is a revelation. It is the realization that depth is not always visible at first glance, that true character is revealed over time through consistent alignment of values, actions, and presence. It reshapes perception, inviting admiration, respect, and a fuller understanding of the person he once misjudged. Authenticity is powerful precisely because it is unassuming, it does not seek validation, yet its effects are profound. When finally recognized, it illuminates the layers of integrity, courage, and truthfulness that define the individual, leaving a lasting impression of depth and substance that cannot be forgotten. Understanding intellectual and emotional nuance is often a turning point in realizing someone's true depth. It is a subtle recognition that the person before you operates on multiple layers, thoughtfully, perceptively, and with emotional sophistication that cannot be immediately grasped. At first, he may have perceived you superficially, judging by visible expressions, spoken words, or immediate reactions, without recognizing the intricate thoughtfulness that underlies them. Intellectual nuance is reflected in the ability to consider perspectives, weigh consequences, and navigate complex ideas with clarity and insight. Emotional nuance is the capacity to perceive subtleties in feelings, respond with empathy, and balance personal emotions with sensitivity to the emotions of others. Together, these dimensions create a rich, multidimensional character that is not always apparent on first impression but reveals itself through consistent observation and experience. Intellectual nuance is not about flaunting knowledge or speaking in grandiose terms. It is the quiet ability to think critically, reflectively, and with discernment. He may have assumed that brevity, silence, or calm in conversation signified simplicity or lack of engagement, yet intellectual depth often expresses itself through listening, careful observation, and thoughtful responses rather than immediate reaction or showmanship. Over time, he begins to notice the subtle intelligence in the way you approach challenges, analyze situations, and offer perspectives that are both grounded and insightful. This nuanced thinking demonstrates patience, discernment, and the ability to navigate life with clarity that is both rare and profoundly compelling. Emotional nuance is equally powerful, though often less visible to casual observers. It is the capacity to sense moods, intentions, and underlying emotions without explicit communication. He may have misinterpreted measured reactions or calm demeanor as indifference, failing to recognize that emotional intelligence often manifests through subtle cues, restraint, and the deliberate choice to respond thoughtfully. Emotional nuance allows someone to navigate interpersonal dynamics with skill, offering understanding and empathy in ways that feel natural yet are profoundly deliberate. When he begins to notice these subtleties, the way you anticipate unspoken needs, provide support without expectation, or respond to tension with calm wisdom, He realizes that he had underestimated your capacity to connect, perceive, and influence in deeply meaningful ways. Intellectual and emotional nuance are often intertwined. The ability to think critically and reflectively enhances emotional perception, allowing for responses that are both reasoned and empathetic. Conversely, emotional awareness deepens intellectual insight, providing perspective, balance, and understanding that purely analytical thinking cannot achieve. He may now see that your decisions, reactions, and interactions are guided by a sophisticated interplay of logic, intuition, and empathy, an alignment of mind and heart that he initially failed to recognize. Misjudgment arises when these qualities are subtle or expressed with quiet confidence, leaving the observer to underestimate the complexity beneath the surface. This recognition often comes gradually through repeated exposure to situations that reveal depth. Intellectual nuance appears in your problem-solving reasoning and capacity for reflection. Emotional nuance shows in the way you handle conflict, support others, and navigate interpersonal challenges with sensitivity and awareness. He begins to perceive that your depth is not performative, it is consistent, authentic, and integrated into who you are. The realization is both humbling and illuminating, as he understands that what he once overlooked is, in fact, extraordinary. Understanding intellectual and emotional nuance also reshapes his appreciation of your presence and influence. He begins to notice how your insights guide decisions, how your empathy impacts interactions, and how your ability to perceive underlying dynamics creates harmony, clarity, and understanding in relationships. This depth is often invisible to those who skim the surface, but it profoundly shapes connections, outcomes, and perceptions. Misjudgment is corrected as he observes the subtle yet powerful ways in which your intellectual and emotional sophistication manifests in everyday life. Ultimately, understanding intellectual and emotional nuance is a profound acknowledgement of a person's multidimensionality. It is the realization that depth is not always obvious, that thoughtfulness and sensitivity often operate quietly, and that true character reveals itself gradually through observation and reflection. When someone recognizes this nuance, it transforms their perception, inspiring respect, admiration, and a deeper appreciation of the complexity, wisdom, and insight that define the individual. It is a recognition that true depth is both rare and enduring, shaping not only the person's life, but also the experiences and understanding of those who take the time to truly see. The impact of your presence is a subtle yet profound element that shapes how people perceive you, often revealing depth only after it has been underestimated. Presence is more than physical proximity or participation in events. It is the quiet influence you carry into any space, the way your energy, demeanor, and attention affect those around you. At first, he may not have recognized this, seeing only superficial aspects of who you are. He may have underestimated the ways your mere presence can calm, inspire, or shift perspectives, assuming that depth is only demonstrated through explicit actions or words. Over time, however, he begins to notice the profound effect you have on moods, decisions, and emotional climates, realizing that your influence extends far beyond what is immediately visible. Your presence is impactful because it is anchored in authenticity and integrity. People instinctively respond to someone whose actions align with values, whose words carry sincerity, and whose energy reflects steadiness and awareness. He may have initially misjudged your quiet confidence or measured demeanor as passivity or simplicity, not recognizing that such composure can guide, inspire, and stabilize those around you. The subtle ways you influence outcomes through listening, offering insight, or providing reassurance become increasingly evident. This realization often comes not through dramatic gestures, but through the consistent, steady effect you have on interactions and environments over time. Impact is also tied to emotional resonance. Your presence communicates empathy, understanding, and validation, creating an atmosphere in which others feel seen and supported. He begins to notice that your influence is not dependent on dominance or volume. It is the result of attentive engagement, thoughtful responses, and emotional awareness. People naturally gravitate toward those who make them feel understood and respected, and your presence carries this effect without overt intention. The recognition of this dynamic highlights how much depth exists beneath the surface, a depth he may have initially misjudged. Assuming that influence required assertiveness rather than subtle, consistent engagement. The impact of presence also manifests in shaping decisions and actions. He may start to see that your insight, guidance, and reactions influence choices in ways that are often invisible but deeply consequential. You provide perspective, clarity, and balance, helping others navigate uncertainty, conflict, or moral ambiguity. Initially, he may not have realized the extent to which your presence informs outcomes, assuming that influence is overt or performative. Over time, it becomes evident that your quiet engagement, thoughtful observation, and deliberate interventions create ripples that extend far beyond immediate perception, revealing a depth of character that commands respect. Your presence is strengthened by consistency and integrity. It is not fleeting or dependent on circumstance. It persists across challenges, interactions, and settings. He begins to recognize that your impact is reliable, anchored in a stable core of values and self-awareness. This realization often contrasts with initial assumptions, which may have judged superficial traits, transient moods, or isolated behaviors as representative of your entire character. Understanding the steady influence you wield fosters admiration and a deeper appreciation of the layers of insight, care, and wisdom embedded in your presence. Impact is also relational. The way you affect others, calming tensions, encouraging reflection, inspiring action, is a direct reflection of your understanding, empathy, and depth. He begins to perceive that your presence shapes not only individual experiences, but also group dynamics, relationships, and environments in subtle yet meaningful ways. The cumulative effect of these interactions demonstrates a level of depth that cannot be captured by surface observation, revealing the profound significance of your influence over time. Ultimately, recognizing the impact of your presence is an acknowledgement of depth that cannot be measured by appearances or immediate impressions. It is the understanding that the quiet, consistent, and thoughtful ways you engage with the world have a lasting and meaningful effect. He begins to see that your influence, empathy, and integrity create an environment that nurtures connection, understanding, and growth, highlighting dimensions of character that were previously overlooked. This realization transforms perception, fostering respect, admiration, and a profound appreciation for the depth inherent in who you are. Regret and admiration often emerge as the final realization when someone recognizes they have misjudged another person's depth. Regret arises not merely from misunderstanding, but from the awareness of what was overlooked, the moments, qualities, and insights that were underestimated or taken for granted. It is the sudden clarity that the person before them possesses layers of character, resilience, and wisdom that were invisible at first glance. This feeling is frequently tinged with humility, as it forces acknowledgement of previous assumptions, misperceptions, and limitations in understanding. The recognition of depth is rarely immediate. It unfolds gradually through observation, reflection, and the experience of seeing authenticity, intelligence, and strength consistently expressed over time. Regret is the acknowledgement that the initial judgment was incomplete or incorrect, and that true appreciation was delayed unnecessarily. Admiration often follows regret, tempered with a quiet respect and awe for the qualities that have now been fully seen. He begins to notice the courage, wisdom, and subtle influence embedded in your character, recognizing that your presence, actions, and decisions are informed by insight and integrity. Admiration grows not from superficial charm or performance, but from consistent demonstration of values, emotional depth, and authenticity. He sees the patience, thoughtfulness, and resilience that underlie your interactions, and the realization that these qualities were always present, but unacknowledged, deepens his respect. There is a profound recognition that true character is revealed not in fleeting moments, but over time, in the deliberate alignment of values, choices, and presence. Regret is amplified by missed opportunities to appreciate or learn from your depth. Early misjudgment may have led to misunderstandings, dismissals, or underestimation of your influence. He may recognize instances where he overlooked your insights, undervalued your advice, or failed to see the quiet strength that guided decisions or relationships. This awareness is often humbling, as it highlights the limitations of perception and the ease with which depth can be underestimated when only surface impressions are considered. Regret is thus not simply about error, it is a realization of the richness, consistency, and subtle power of your character that was previously invisible, and an acknowledgement of the moments he failed to fully engage with or appreciate you. Admiration, in contrast, is forward-looking. Once depth is recognized, it shapes how he perceives your presence and the impact you have on the world. He may reflect on the influence of your insights, the guidance offered through both action and example, and the integrity with which you navigate life. This admiration is not passive, it informs the respect, recognition, and appreciation that he now brings to every interaction. He begins to understand that true depth cannot be captured by superficial observation alone. It requires attention, patience, and a willingness to perceive the nuances of thought, emotion, and action. Admiration arises naturally from this recognition, inspiring humility, respect, and a deeper understanding of the qualities that define you. Regret and admiration are intertwined because one often informs the other. The realization of what was misjudged or overlooked naturally produces a sense of loss or remorse for the delay in recognition. At the same time, it generates a profound respect and acknowledgement of the qualities that were previously hidden. This duality reflects the human capacity to both reflect on past assumptions and appreciate the enduring depth of character. The interplay between these emotions often prompts introspection, growth, and a renewed awareness of the importance of careful observation, patience, and genuine engagement with others. Moreover, the combination of regret and admiration underscores the transformative power of true depth. He begins to understand that your influence, insight, and presence are not superficial or performative. They shape interactions, decisions, and relationships in profound ways. He may recognize that the earlier misjudgment was not just a minor oversight, but a failure to see the full spectrum of your impact and character. Admiration is thus both a recognition of the individual's intrinsic qualities and a reflection of the lessons learned through observing, engaging, and finally perceiving what had always been there. Ultimately, regret and admiration mark the culmination of realization. Regret reflects the humility to acknowledge past misjudgment, while admiration celebrates the depth, resilience, and authenticity that define you. Together, they capture the profound impact of truly seeing someone, appreciating the layers that define them, and understanding the richness of character that had long been underestimated. This dual recognition transforms perception, fosters respect, and leaves an enduring impression of the depth, integrity, and strength inherent in who you are. In the end, realizing someone's depth is a journey of perception, patience, and reflection. What was once misjudged becomes clear, the quiet strength, emotional intelligence, authenticity, and nuanced understanding that define who they truly are. Regret may arise for the moments when their depth went unnoticed, yet admiration follows, acknowledging the remarkable character, insight, and influence that have always been present. This recognition reminds us that true depth is rarely immediate. It is revealed over time through observation, engagement, and reflection. To fully see someone is to honor their complexity, appreciate their resilience, and respect the integrity with which they navigate life. When perception aligns with reality, it transforms understanding, fosters genuine respect, and illuminates the profound impact of a person who has always been more than anyone initially realized.